Hello everyone, welcome back. So we're going to do a little DIYing. Oh yeah. So we're going to make some candles, okay? And first thing we're going to do is make our own wicks. Now, if you don't want to make your own wicks, you could just fast forward to the candle part. But for those that want to make their own wicks, it's a very simple process. If you make your own wicks, first of all, if you're making a lot of candles, you're going to save a ton of money, okay? And then you have the advantage of knowing you did it yourself, okay? You're going to know exactly what is in the wick, and they're going to burn brighter. There's going to be less smoke. There's going to be less ash. You know, sometimes you burn a candle. I mean, you know, it varies depending on how they're made. You get a big old, like, ash part on the top of the candle, like black, and then it falls over and it sits in there. These don't do that, okay? So I got this 500-foot roll of regular butcher's twine, okay? Now, this twine is unbleached, 100% cotton, right? So it's all natural and it's food grade. You can use a lot of things to make wicks. You could actually use a piece of a splint of a stick. You could use jute twine. You could use a cotton ball. There's a ton of stuff. But if you're making, you know, a candle, you kind of want to use just a regular wick. Now, this is a 16-ply butcher's twine. They come in all different, 10, 12, whatever, okay? This is the size that I'm using for the candles that I'm making, which I'll show you later on in the video. If you need a thicker one, because if I make a thicker candle, I'll use a thicker wick. You could do things like reverse wrapping this. You know, you twist it up and you do a reverse wrap. You know, if you know how to do that, you could just braid it, or you could just buy thicker twine. All right, so this is what we're going to use. Now, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to heat up 1 cup of water and bring it to the point where it's almost boiling, and you're going to put that into this cup. So I have the water on the heat, and you're going to add 3 tablespoons of borax and 1 tablespoon of salt. It doesn't have to be coarse. I like to use the Morton kosher salt because it doesn't have iodine in it. I don't know if iodine does anything, but this is what I use. I've been making these for about, I'm going to say, a good 10 years, and they always come out great. All right, so let me get the water, and we'll continue on. All right, so we got our hot water. I just poured the borax into the cup so I can get it out easier and not make a huge mess. So again, 3 tablespoons to 1. And guess what? You know, this is a very small batch. I don't even know why I said guess what. But it's a small batch. I've made this with a quart of water. So just multiply it, right? You know, however, if you're doing 2 cups, do, you know, 6 and 2 and, you know, so far, so on and so forth. And guess what? You know, if it comes out a tablespoon and a half of this or that, whatever, you're fine. All right, stir this up. You can feel it gritty on the bottom. Just keep stirring it. Let it sit for a minute and dissolve. And in the interim, you could take the twine and make the exact size wicks you need. I prefer not to do that. I just make a big whatever, it's 2 feet, 3 feet, whatever. I don't really measure it out until I'm actually making the candles. So I'll just pull a bunch of this out. Have no idea how much I'm taking out, but I'll have plenty to make plenty of candles. If you're going to do this, I suggest you make a lot, because, you know, if you decide you want to make candles one day, you really don't want to have to go through this process, because it's a tad lengthy. It's not hard, it's just a tad lengthy. I mean, in total, it's going to take you 3 days, and I'll explain that. All right, let's see how this is doing. All right, I don't feel much grit on the bottom. We'll call that good. Now you're just going to take your twine and drop it in there. And it's as simple as that. Now you're going to want to leave this soaking. I do it for 24 hours. I've read some people doing it for 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. I just stick with the 24 hours. You know, I'll just put it on in my garage on the bench. I'll just leave it there for 24 hours. I may come in once in a blue moon and just poke it. Make sure everything is sunk like it is right now. You can't see the twine. And after 24 hours, I will bring you back and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so this has been soaking for 24 hours. And did you ever make rock candy when you were a kid? Well, this is an extra crispy batch. All right, now don't worry about all of the crystals, okay? Now what I'm going to do is just separate this. And you can give this a dunk in clean water if you want. I don't bother doing that. I'm basically just going to stretch it all out, and I'm going to hang it up on a hanger or a piece of wood or something and let it dry for 2 days, okay? I've gone as little as a day in the middle of summer. Obviously, I'm here in Florida, so it gets pretty hot in the summer. But, you know, a normal day, today's not ultra hot. It's only like, 70. So I'll hang it up for 48 hours. It's got to be completely dry. And just remember, if you're doing it inside, put something underneath because it's going to drip, okay? So we'll be back in 48 hours. All right, so it's been 2 days, and this is what we have. As you can see, there's all crystals all over it. And the next step I like to do is I just take my fingers and brush off all the excess crystals. It's really not a totally necessary step, but this is what I do. Okay? So now this part of this wick is ready to be used. Now, there's a new way that I started doing it that I feel is just easier for me. normally what you would do is you'd cut the wick to the size that you need, and you would dip it in wax, and you'd end up with this. It's almost like a little miniature candle, okay? And then if you're doing it in a jar, they sell these little tabs with double stick tape on them, and you could stick it down into the middle. And you have some type of holder, which I'll show you what I use to keep it centered in the top, okay? So let me get all my other stuff, and I'll show you the way that I do it now. All right, so these are my candle molds for the long thin candles, and they're just a PVC with a little plug end, okay? And I do 4 at a time, okay? So we're gonna make one of these today. Then this one is the one I use for the shorter, fatter ones, and again, just has a plug in the end. And if you notice, I have a hole in the bottom, okay, of all of these. And what I do is, first, you're gonna have to clean these, okay? Let me get one that's fairly clean already. This one here. Since we're only gonna make one. Okay. So what I use is just regular, original PAM, okay? If you have a releasing agent, you could use that, but I've been using this for years and it works fine. So what you want to do is get yourself a little piece of paper towel. I'm going to jam it in here. I'm going to try to get it as tight as I can. Just get a skewer and push it through. And take a look down there. Make sure you don't have any leftover wax. There's a little bit in there. If you have anything that's stubborn, you can get some denatured alcohol, and that'll get rid of it for you. I seem to have a mark in this one. Okay, now we'll get ourselves another piece, not as big, and we're going to get this pretty saturated. Again, because this is going to act as a releasing agent. We don't want it too tight because we want it to leave a nice coating in there, okay? Now don't forget to put a little bit on your plug. And again, there's so many different ways. This is just the way that I do it, okay? Now, where are we? I just have a length of wick. This is way too long, but it is what it is. And I put a little tiny smear of beeswax on the end. It just keeps the fibers together while I push it through here. Okay? Now I'll take this end and I'll put a knot in it. And again, if I was using a coated one, I'd have to just jam it in there. But that's why I like this way better. Then I'll take this and just feed it down. Whoops. My mold. Snug that up. Now we need something to hold this. And what I came up with was just taking a piece. I've used paper clips. I've used popsicle sticks. Alligator clips, and I found that this is the easiest and most reliable way. Okay, so I make these little basically spring clips out of a little simple piece of wire, okay? And all you do is you bend it like that, put a circle in it. Now put your fingers here and just twist it, okay? Now you have that little opening in the middle. You could take that, put it through here. Let's get the mold. Now, when you put this through here, you could snug up on it, and it puts tension on the wick, and you can get it perfectly centered. Okay, so now this one is ready to be poured. I want to show you one other thing. Let me go grab it before we actually pour the candle. Okay, this is going to end up being the bottom, okay? Now, if you look at this, I'm sure it's going to show up there. There's a void right there. Does it affect the candle? Absolutely not. By the time this melts down to there, yeah, it doesn't matter, okay? So what I do is to try to avoid that. Like, see this one here? It's pretty full. I won't fill this up to the top, okay? I'll leave about at least 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so what happens is as it starts to set up, okay, it starts to make that little void on this end. And then I'll add just a little bit more wax, a little bit more wax, a little bit more wax, okay? Try not to overflow it, because then it becomes a pain to get everything off. So that's all we got to do. Let me get this, oh, and I just use a simple little, this happened to be a mushroom can, okay? I don't, what happened was I've done the double boil method for years and years and years, especially when I made lube for casting bullets. I didn't like that. I just didn't like the double boil method. It's just, it gets water all over. It's a pain in the neck. The best way I found to melt wax, any kind of wax, is when I bought my crock pot, it came with a little warming pot. If you ever saw any of my wax canvas videos where I show how to wax canvas, you've seen that. And to me, there's no other way better than that. It's like, I think they even sell dedicated wax melters, and they're basically the same thing. So wax, again, I'm not 100% sure of the temperature. I want to say 160-ish, okay? But I found out that on my stove, at setting number 2 on one of my small burners, gives me around 155 on the outside ring to 170 on the inner part, and it works perfectly for melting beeswax. I would not suggest using an open flame. You don't want to scorch the wax. And do not melt beeswax outside, because honeybees will come. I was doing a video with beeswax, and I had it outside melted, and literally a bee came and landed in it and did a kamikaze move. So let me get the beeswax melted, and we'll do some pouring. All right, so my wax is melted. Now we're going to pour it in. Like I said, I left a little space. Hopefully you can see that. Not filled all the way to the top. And I'll add another little drop. Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it starts to get a little, like, lack of a better term, like a creamy color. Let's see if I could zoom in. I don't know if you could see around the rim, it starts to get a little creamy color. That's it starting to set up. It takes a while. All right, now we need to let this cool down a little bit and I'll bring you back. All right, so you can see it's got that creamy color on top. Now I take this whole thing and I put it into the freezer. And I leave it in there 10, 15 minutes. And when I take it out, I'll bring you back. All right, so it's been in the freezer about 10, 15 minutes. Next thing I'm going to do is I have a single edge razor blade. And I just slide it along the bottom. Cut that knot off. Pull that out. And I want to look in there. Hopefully you can see the edge is coming away a little bit, but not enough. So I'm going to put this back in for another 5-10 minutes. All right. Hopefully you could see that. It's starting to shrink a little bit. You see a space there. Now, this camera's so in the way. What I'm going to do is pop open this. Now I made this little plunger. It's got a little hole in it. Now hopefully this pops right out. Maybe not cold enough. There it is. Now I'll take this razor again, razor blade, trim the wick a little bit, okay, and then you could fancy it up a little bit. Down here at the bottom, you can cut off this. And there you have it. Now, there's a couple schools of thoughts on if you could burn them right away or if you should wait. I personally have done both. You don't see a major difference, but when it first comes out, it doesn't feel like one that's a week old, okay? Now, one other thing I do also, if you could see right here, the wax has gone up the wick, but if it didn't, I would take, I have my little melted wax with a little acid brush, and I would just brush that. And then the whole thing is covered. All right, let's go to the garage, and I'm going to light one up that I made probably about a week ago, and I'll show you how they burn. All right. So I have it in one of my homemade candle holders, which is just a wooden base with a couple pieces of lead in there. And that's a copper, half-inch copper pipe with PVC over it. And the same thing on the top. And then this is just a flange. Look at that flame, huh? Those homemade wicks are just the bomb, I'm telling you. Got a little breeze going on. Yeah, we got a breeze. So there you have it, folks. How to make a beeswax candle, or basically any kind of candle, um, including the wick. It's a fun project. Um, they're great, as you can see, even with the wind, it's staying lit. You got a nice big flame. It's awesome. And when you burn these inside, you hardly get any drip. I just noticed that that dripped. And again, that's because of the wind. It's doing some funky things to it. But yeah, they're very, very cool candles. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them. And you know I'm going to say it. I'm sending you all much, much love and appreciation, my brothers and sisters. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming along, and we'll see you on the next one.